All right. Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Bakersfield Business Partners weekly podcast. My name is Duncan Harris. I'm the owner of Insurance Savings Group and past president of Bakersfield Business Partners. We're a B&I chapter here in Bakersfield, and we definitely have the best group. There's no doubt about it. And what makes us the best is our members. So we started a podcast to highlight our membership, and we've got here today with us Cecile Shanklin. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Fabulous. It's Friday.
You made it. I know. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
And I can tell you're frustrated with me. Well, look, we want to have our members on the podcast each week just to educate you and us about what they do, what's going on in their industry. And that's why Cecile's here today. So really quickly, just kind of tell us who you are, where you work, and what you do.
My name is Cecile Shanklin. I'm with Ticor Title. We are a title and escrow company here in Bakersfield. I've been with Ticor for 18 years now, been in the industry for 40 plus years. So I've seen the goods, I've seen the bads, I've seen the market go up, I've seen the market come down.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting time in the real estate and escrow and title world.
So for people that don't know what title is or what title companies do, give us a quick synopsis. I mean, why do I need a title company in my life? Tell me.
As an escrow company, we are a disinterested...
Escrow. Yeah.
And title. We are a disinterested third party who carries out the terms and conditions of a real estate contract, which means we make sure that everything that's in that contract gets taken care of before we close the escrow. As a title company, what we do is we search the title of the property, make sure there are no liens, encumbrances against it, make sure taxes are paid, make sure there are no judgments against a seller, because if a judgment is against a seller, that attaches to the property and that must be paid because we have to deliver clear title to the buyer when the transaction closes.
Okay. So let's talk about two different scenarios. Let's talk about kind of the good scenario. Hey, I'm a home buyer and I'm buying a house and I'm going to use an escrow and title company. So you guys make sure that the money goes here and this person signs that essentially and that the titles, is that essentially right?
That's essentially right. What we do is the real estate agent sends us the contract. We prepare escrow instructions. We order a title search. When we get everything back, we have both parties come in and sign, go over all the documents with them. If the buyer is getting a loan, we communicate with the lender to make sure that we have all the things that the lender needs and give them all the information they need. And then as soon as we do all that, we can close the escrow.
Got it. Now, a lot of what you talk about in our chapter every week is not the ideal or typical situation. It's kind of when things go wrong. And you guys seem to be in those situations a lot, not from anything you've done, but maybe you can kind of shed light on what happens with title when it's not properly, in this person's name the right way. Or, I mean, could you give some examples of that?
Sure. One thing we're seeing right now a lot of is when grandma and grandpa, older people pass away, and the kids get the property, and they are now trying to dispose of the property. We have to go in and see how title was held. Mm-hmm. And if title was held a certain way, then it's a pretty easy deal. But if title was not held in a trust or something like that, the property may have to go through probate, which can take a year and a half, depending on how big the estate is. The property may be given to a certain person and the rest of the family doesn't like them. So there could be a lawsuit or something like that. So there's a lot of different scenarios that can come into play. A trust is the best thing to have because in a trust, when a property is in a trust, it specifically states that trust is technically the owner of the property. There's a successor trustee, and that successor trustee can distribute the property how the previous people wanted it distributed. When it's just held in joint tenants, community property, things like that, it has to go to probate, and it really, really takes a long time, and it can be a tedious process.
So, and then what happens where, they don't take care of it right away? Maybe mom and dad pass away, and then brother-in-law is living there for a couple of years. I mean, tell us about some of those situations where maybe people just get complacent or lazy And then all of a sudden they go and try and sell the house, and it's like, oh, no one's here to sign it. How does that happen?
Well, that can be an interesting scenario. First of all, if brother-in-law is living in the house, they have to get brother-in-law out of the house, and that could be a situation.
And that doesn't always happen so easily. Okay.
It does not.
Yeah.
But if grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, whoever it is, passed away 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and the property was never probated, now they're going to have to probate it. And what they have to do is they have to look at all the heirs. So if grandma and grandpa had 10 kids and there was no will saying that they wanted Susie to have the property only, then they would have to go to those 10 kids. Everyone would have to be notified because it would be split up between those 10 kids. Now, if any of those 10 kids have passed, then it could go to their
Goes
kids.
to their heirs.
And if they had 5 kids, then you can see how this going down the family tree can really expand and bring a lot of people in.
Why wouldn't someone deal with it immediately? You know, mom and dad pass away, and the house is just sitting there, or maybe if there's a family member living in it. Why don't people deal with it right away? What's kind of the most common factor that you see?
Well, because maybe mom and dad said, they want brother Joe to live there. And so they've just never, they've let him live there, and they've just never done anything.
People just kind of let it go.
People just let it go. Maybe they're using it for a rental. And they've just never thought that, oh, hey, we probably should do something to make sure that this title gets into the name of the right people. Because when you do a probate 10, 15, 20 years later, there's kind of a process. You have to go back to what the property was worth then, and it can be a little bit difficult to do that.
Does all this cost money, I assume?
All this does cost money, yes.
And they'd have to work with you or an attorney?
They
How
would
that
work.
go?
They would work with an attorney. There's also what we call a mini probate, that if the value of the property is not past a certain amount, and I believe that's $100,000 now, it kind of moves around. You can do a small value declaration, and it doesn't take as long. You still have to do a few steps, but it doesn't take as long. But with our property values now, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was about to say, are there any properties less than 100?
Well, here's the deal. If someone owned a property with another party and we're just having to deal with half of that
portion,
then that could come into play then.
So then ideally, if we wanted to make this transaction as clean and as smooth as possible, the parents, the children, there'd be an estate plan, a trust, everything's set up, pre-planned ahead of time. Otherwise, it could be a roll of the dice. You never know with the probate system or heirs, brothers, sisters, whatever.
Well, and you don't ever know about family members, and that's unfortunately a lot of what we see. When my parents passed, they had everything spelled out. My brothers and sisters were like, just you do what mom and dad wanted, you take care of it. But unfortunately, in some families, it's not that easy. And one of them will say, no, mom said I got this. And the other one will say, no, dad said I got this. And then you get to this fight about who gets the proceeds and how much of the proceeds and all that stuff.
And that's probably where you see the most problems, I would imagine.
That is where we see the most problems, because we have to have everybody sign off. We have to have, everybody give permission, and it can get down to the nitty gritty and not be fun.
People just fighting over money, sounds like. So what about fraud? Fraud's kind of a big issue in a lot of areas of life these days. How about like title fraud, or what's going on there?
It's interesting because you see all these commercials on TV, like they talk about locking, title lock, and make sure nobody steals your title, things like that. We don't see that kind of fraud.
Okay.
The fraud pretty much that we see is notary fraud. We did have an instance not too long ago where a gentleman applied for a loan, took out a loan against a piece of property, and he had documentation and everything that he was that person, and he had everything, and he put a loan on a piece of property, and he was not that person. But he had driver's license. He had all the information. So we use company approved notaries so that we make sure that we vetted them. And he had everything. And then it came down to the person who owned the property came back to us and said, "What do you mean there's a loan on my property?" So that's where your title policy pays off. And you come to us and we'll get involved and we'll figure it out and we'll straighten it out.
Yikes. Yeah, I had a strange call last week. I do Medicare. Someone called my office. They said, "Well, I might need some help with Medicare for my mom, but she's in the hospital right now, and I have been having a hard time getting a hold of her, and I can't get a hold of my brother either, and there's a for sale sign in front of my mom's house." So is it possible for someone to try and sell your house out from underneath you? Like, and it's in this case, an elderly person who maybe is, how do I say it? They're not of sound mind or whatever. They're in the hospital, or maybe they have dementia or Alzheimer's. Can a family member, can a son, a estranged family member sell your house? How would they do that?
Well, it just depends. I mean, if the brother talked the mom into signing over the property to them before she went in the hospital.
So let's say you're the brother and you're trying to just work out some shady deal. I mean, he would just maybe type up a contract or something like on his own and have her sign it, or what would he do? He would go to an attorney and...
No, he can type up a grant deed. He can type up a grant deed and have her sign it in front of a notary, and the notary can notarize it, and then they can bring it to us. Now, that's where we would go back to mom and have her sign something with one of our notaries that said that she did this of her own free will,
Sure. Got it. So you guys kind of have this extra step in there.
Absolutely.
Where you verified the notary, people that you trust that are really highly skilled. Okay.
But think of juniors and seniors. If someone took title to a property as John Smith and they were John Smith Sr., we don't know that it's John Smith Sr. If it's just John Smith and somebody brings us, all their ID and everything, and they're John Smith. And so we've had some things where we've really had to go in and do research, and we've got some computer programs and some resources that we can really look into people, Social Security numbers, all those kinds of things, so that we make sure that the person who is signing and transferring the property is the person.
So you've been in this industry a little while. You said 40 years roughly. So, I mean, your reputation and integrity is at the highest level, but I assume then there's probably companies operating here that maybe aren't, or notaries that aren't. I mean, how do these people, get these transactions by?
Well, that's why we use company approved notaries, and they have a vetting process that they have to go through. They have to carry a certain amount of E&O insurance and all that kind of stuff. The notary that's just walking down the street, they might be absolutely fine, but you don't know that for sure. We don't know that for sure. That's why we make sure we use company approved notaries. The other thing is we deal with out of state. We deal with out of the country, things like that. So all those people have to be on our list so that we know wherever they are, they were vetted properly, and we can rely on their notary.
Wow, very cool. Well, that's good. I mean, that just makes, I guess, the transaction way more secure.
Way more secure, and people need to realize, too, if they're going to go out of the country, if they're going to be out of the country, or if they're out of the country selling a property here, they need to make sure that they make arrangements to go to the consulate in that country to have their documents notarized, or there's other ways they can do it with local notaries, but it's a much more tedious process.
Got it. Okay. So what else do I need to know about your industry? Is there anything changing? Any new laws coming down the road people need to be aware of, or what else is going on?
No, I don't think there's any real new laws. I think it's just important that when people are going to sell their property, especially older people, they make sure they know what they're doing. Make sure they know the tax ramifications. They make sure they know that if they're selling a property here and they're going to go buy a property in Pismo Beach, which is going to be a lot more money, they can take the tax basis and they can transfer it there. There's all sort of little nuances that can help you, but you have to know the right people and ask the right people. So they need to use the resources that are always available, their CPA, their attorney. They can ask us, do some research on the internet. It's just very important that people understand. And when you're buying something, know what you're buying. We've got a situation right now where there's some people who thought that they were buying this much property, but they really were only buying this much property. And so it can be sticky, and we're dealing with that and going through all the legal places.
In that case, was it fraud, or was it a mistake, or was it something that had been overlooked 10 years ago? Like what happens there?
Well, what happened is that the buyer was buying three lots were for sale.
Okay.
3 lots were for sale. And the buyer thought, well, I can't even say thought. They purchased the 3 lots, and then they looked at some information, and when the deed had been transferred years ago, the legal description had not been put on right. Okay? So then they maintained, well, it doesn't matter that I only had a contract on these 3 lots. Y'all transferred 4 lots to me, so now I own 4 lots. Well, it doesn't quite work that way because you had a contract on 3 lots. So you don't get to have an extra lot with, maybe a house or whatever on it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
But this is from an old legal description that was going back.
It's from a legal description that when property was transferred, the legal description didn't only transfer 1 property, it transferred 2.
Yeah, I got it.
So it's those kinds of things. And, people get upset because, no, you did this, it's ours now. Well, that's not the way it is. We have to go through the legal things, and your contract was for 3 lots and not 4 lots.
I feel like your industry, or at least the situations you're describing, is really like the law of unintended consequences. Like 18 years ago, someone forgot to update a property description, and nothing happens for 18 years. And then, finally there's this transaction, and all this stuff kind of blows up.
It can.
There's this huge dispute, and you guys just dig and go back and back.
And that's what our job is to go back. Now, when you're dealing with a simple lot and tract, which is what a lot of Bakersfield is, it's a pretty more cut and dry, pretty more basic. But when you're dealing with some of the more rural properties where the boundaries are what we call meets and bounds, where they start at the rusty pipe in the ground, and
Right.
then they go to the granite rock over here.
To the oak tree. Yeah.
Exactly. When you're dealing with that kind of stuff, it can get a little tedious, and we have to go back and look. But it is very interesting when I get to do a lot of research on that stuff, and it's very interesting.
Do you enjoy that part of your job?
I do.
Sometimes?
I do. I
Yeah.
enjoy the history and going back and following the whole chain of title when it, and you see all the names in town that you recognize that were the old folks' names.
Are you guys ever on like the wrong side of a transaction? I mean, do you feel like you're ever helping someone take advantage of the system in a way, or are you always trying to find the truth?
No,
and figure out what the truth is?
That is our job.
Okay.
That is our job, and that is why we are a reputable company. We are part of the Fidelity National Financial umbrella, and our job is to make sure when we transfer that property to the new owners, that is their property.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. Another note is a lot of talk has been going around about notaries that you can do online, remote notaries.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this. Yeah.
The state of California does not accept that right now. Our
Okay.
Kern County recorder doesn't accept that. We don't do that. We have to have you appear in person, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're in the hospital, we will find a notary who can go to the hospital
Yeah.
and take care of it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's all about service. We're a service business, and we try and take care of our customers to the best of our ability.
So what's the ideal customer for you then? It's just anyone kind of in that real estate transaction, whether it be purchasing or selling a home, I guess purchasing a property, or maybe people acquiring property through inheritance. Is that kind of the ideal customer, whether it's a individual or family member?
Absolutely. We deal a lot with real estate agents. We deal a lot with lenders. But if you're a for sale by owner, we can take care of your transaction too. If you just have a question about how your property is held, all you have to do is give us a call. We can do that. We can provide you a copy of the grant deed that gave you the property, or if you need a copy of your deed of trust or anything like that. If you want to see if there's any liens against your property, we can take care of that, because that is what we do every single day. We search properties to see if there are any liens or encumbrances against property and who legally owns that property.
So here's something I genuinely don't know is, how do you guys get paid?
How do we get paid?
Yeah, how do you get paid?
Okay. We are under the Department of Insurance. That's who we are regulated by. All of our fees are filed with the Department of Insurance. We have an escrow fee, and we have a fee for what we call a title policy. The title policy ensures that as the seller, you're selling to a buyer, and that buyer gets clear title. And then there's also a lender's policy that ensures the lender that that person who is purchasing the property, that lender is in first position. So we have an escrow fee, and then we'll have a homeowner's policy, and then if there's a lender involved, a lender's policy.
Got it. But essentially, it's doing the work of making sure that the property is as they said. These are the boundary lines. This is what you're getting. And then making sure there's no other judgments, liens, or anything else against that property.
And then handling the transaction on the escrow side, where you're making sure everything in the contract is taken care of. All the money is coming in, all the money is going out.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
And how many people are at Ticor Title here in Bakersfield? How big's your team?
We have 7 escrow officers right now, and we are not the largest. But I think I can say that we do a really good job. We are only here in Bakersfield. We do a lot of transactions here in Bakersfield. We've got some great clients. We are very blessed that we have some really great clients, and I enjoy my job. They're great people.
That's good. My next question is, what's the best part about your job?
The best part about my job is dealing with real estate agents.
Really? The real estate agents?
Most of them are pretty good. But also just making sure that people are comfortable in their transaction. I tend to do some of the outlying notaries where if a person is in a skilled nursing facility and they need to have a notary come to them, I go to them. Elderly people who can't drive to us, I go to their homes and take care of them. So it's very, very rewarding that you get to help somebody. Sometimes it's also very sad because, they're selling their property and they don't really want to, but they're getting up in age.
Yeah.
But it's a time to really relate to people on a different level. And I really enjoy that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yep.
Well, that's really cool. It sounds like you love your job, and you're certainly a valuable member of our group. You've always educated us and done everything so well. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about BNI, about our chapter. Do you know how long you've been a member?
10 years, I believe.
Roughly, yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think so.
I ask everyone, and I have no idea.
I think 10 or 11 years, yes. And it's been great. I've met some great people. I've met some people I still do business with now, even though they're not in the group. And our group, I think, is unique because of all the personalities that we have and how everyone respects everyone else. But it's like a family.
Yeah.
Everybody, you can kid somebody, you can make fun of them, and nobody gets their feelings hurt. And that's what I really enjoy.
Well, good. And has it helped you grow your business or grow in sales?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I get referrals from the group, and then I also get referrals from people who used to be in the group. And I get referrals from people who the group referred, and then they referred someone. So it does. And And our real estate agent, Marvin, in our group he's a great guy. And then we have Alan Medeiros, who's a lender, and he's a great guy. I mean, that guy is so full of knowledge. It's just amazing. And all the other people, you've brought so much to our group in educating us, because I'm getting up there. I'm no spring chicken anymore. And just the things that with Medicare and things like this. And when I turned 65, I came to you and said, okay, do I need to do this, or can I still do this? And you answer questions. And I think that that's the biggest thing about our group is we're here to educate and help people. We're not just here to make money.
Yeah. You couldn't have said it any better. I mean, if the purpose of BNI is to join the group and grow your business through referrals. However, there are these huge side benefits to being in our chapter. Cecile's touching on that. The two are education and relationship. So I wouldn't know anything about escrow and title. I just wouldn't. I would go and sign my papers, and for the rest of my life, I wouldn't know until my parents passed away and something happened, then I'd be screwed. So every week you show up, everyone gives a 60-second commercial, and we're all educated. We get a little nugget of knowledge every week. Cecile, she's busy. She's an expert in title and escrow. She doesn't know anything about Medicare, but that's what I do all day long.
Exactly.
So even if you join the group and you never got one referral, you still would have this team of professionals behind you that you could text, email, call. Duncan, I've got a question. I've got an issue. What's going on? And that alone is invaluable. It makes you a resource to your clients. It enhances your business just because your knowledge base. But cool.
And we're not, we don't just go to the meetings every Tuesday and stuff. These guys, they go out fishing together and they play golf together and, all those kinds of things. So it's become a real family and a real camaraderie.
And we aren't just friends. We don't just chum it up at the meeting. These are very productive meetings. So we have a fiscal year, and over 12 months, we track how much business is passed within the chapter in referrals. So I think last year, do you know what we got to? I want to say it was over 2, but I wasn't sure.
If it was really close to 2 million.
Yeah. So we're a group of probably 27, 28 people, and we generated roughly $2 million in referrals in 12 months, which makes the value of each seat pretty high if you do the numbers.
High.
And we're about 6 months, about halfway through this year, and I think we're at what, 700? What are we at?
I think we're about 800.
$800,000 in referrals. So come check us out. We meet every week, Tuesday morning at 7:30. The structure of the meeting is that, if you're an insurance agent, you're going to join the group, and there's no other Medicare insurance agents with you. It's just your chapter. So there's no other escrow and title officers in our group. It's an exclusive group. So Cecile gets to stand up every week and tell us, hey, this is what we do. This is what we see in our industry. This is what makes us unique, better, different. If you have a referral, this is how you can send someone to me. And you do that every week, and you learn and gain, and then you build relationships. And we generate lots of referrals.
Yep. It's lots of fun.
And it's also lots of fun. So come check us out. We meet Tuesday mornings at 7:30. And the name of our group is Bakersfield Business Partners. I think that's it. We're going to sign off unless you've got anything else that you want to close with.
No, the only thing I want to close with is we not only do residential real estate, escrow and title, we do commercial, we do industrial, we do new construction, we do business opportunities, and we do mobile homes. So it's extremely important. I educate these guys every week on mobile homes because they can just be a big, fat mess.
Yeah.
But if you own a mobile home and you're going to transfer it, make sure you do it the right way.
Well, we will do that. Cecile,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Happy Friday. And until next time, we'll see you later.
All right. Take care.